Welcome to Pastor Andrew's Inspirations. Today we will be talking about the biblical name of Abner. In the Hebrew Bible, Abner or Avner was the cousin of King Saul and the commander-in-chief of his army in 1 Samuel chapter 14 verse 50 and chapter 20 verse 25. His name also appears as Abner, son of Ner, where the longer form Abner means my father is Ner. Abner is initially mentioned incidentally in Saul's history. In 1 Samuel chapter 14 verse 50, chapter 17 verse 55, and chapter 26 verse 5. First appearing as the son of Ner, Saul's uncle, and the commander of Saul's army. He then comes to the story again as the commander who introduced David to Saul, following David's killing of Goliath. He is not mentioned in the account of the disastrous battle of Gilboa, when Saul's power was crushed, seizing the youngest but only surviving of Saul's sons. Ishbosheth, also called Ishbaal. Abner set him up as king over Israel at Mahanaim, east of the Jordan. David, who was accepted as king by Judah alone, was meanwhile reigning at Hebron, and for some time war was carried on between the two parties. The only engagement between the rival factions which is told at length is noteworthy, inasmuch as it was preceded by an encounter at Gibeon between 12 chosen men from each side, in which the whole 24 seem to have perished in 2 Samuel chapter 2 verse 12. In the general meeting which followed, Abner was defeated and put to flight. He was closely pursued by Asahel, brother of Joab, who is said to have been light of foot as a wild roe in 2 Samuel chapter 2 verse 18. As Asahel would not desist from the pursuit, though warned, Abner was compelled to slay him in self-defense. This originated a deadly feud between the leaders of the opposite parties. For Joab, as next of kin to Asahel, was by the law and custom of the country the avenge of his blood. However, according to Josephus, in Antiquities, Book 7, Chapter 1, Joab had forgiven Abner for the death of his brother Asahel. The reason being that Abner had slain Asahel honorably in combat after he had first warned Asahel, and had no other choice but to kill him out of self-defense. This battle was part of a civil war between David and Ishbosheth, the son of Saul. After this battle, Abner switched to the side of David and granted him control over the tribe of Benjamin. This act put Abner in David's favor. For some time afterward, the war was carried on, the advantage being always on the side of David. At length, Ishbosheth lost the main prop of his tottering cause by accusing Abner of sleeping with Rizpah in 2 Samuel chapter 3 verse 7, one of Saul's concubines, an alliance which according to contemporary notions would imply pretensions to the throne in 2 Samuel chapter 16 verse 21. Abner was indignant at the rebuke and immediately opened negotiations with David, who welcomed him on the condition that his wife Michal should be restored to him. This was done, and the proceedings were ratified by a feast. Also immediately after, however, Joab, who had been sent away, perhaps intentionally, returned and slew Abner at the gate of Hebron. The ostensible motive for the assassination was a desire to avenge Asahel, and this would be a sufficient justification for the deed according to the moral standard of the time, although Abner should have been safe from such a revenge killing in Hebron, which was a city of refuge. The conduct of David after the event was such as to show that he had no complicity in the act, though he could not venture to punish its perpetrators in 2 Samuel chapter 3 verses 31 to 39 and 1 Kings chapter 2 verse 31. David had Abner buried in Hebron, as it states in 2 Samuel chapter 3 verses 31 and 32. And David said to all the people who were with him, "Rend your clothes and gird yourselves with sackcloth, and wail before Abner." And King David went after the bier, and they buried Abner in Hebron. And the king raised his voice, and wept on Abner's grave, and all the people wept. Shortly after Abner's death, Ishbosheth was assassinated as he slept in 2 Samuel chapter 4, verses 5 to 12. And David became king of the reunited kingdoms in 2 Samuel chapter 5, verses 1 to 5. The site known as the tomb of Abner is located not far from the cave of the patriarchs in Hebron, and receives visitors throughout the year. Many travelers have recorded visiting the tomb over the centuries. Benjamin of Tudela, who began his journeys in 1165, wrote in the journal, "The valley of Eshcol is north of the mountain upon which Hebron stood, and the cave of Machpelah is east thereof. A bow shot west of the cave is the sepulchre of Abner, the son of Ner." A rabbi in the 12th century records visiting the tomb as reprinted in Elkan Nathan Adler's book, Jewish Travelers in the Middle Ages, 19 first-hand accounts. This account states, "I, Jacob the son of our Nathaniel ha-Cohen, journeyed with much difficulty, but God helped me to enter the Holy Land. And I saw the graves of our righteous patriarchs in Hebron, and the grave of Abner the son of Ner." Adler postulates that the visit must have occurred prior to Saladin's capture of Jerusalem in 1187. Rabbi Moses Basola records visiting the tomb in 1522. He states Abner's grave is in the middle of Hebron. The Muslims built a mosque over it. Another visitor in the 1500s states that at the entrance to the market is Hebron. At the top of the hill against the wall, Abner ben Ner is buried. In a church in a cave. This visit was recorded in the Book of Genealogy of the Righteous, a collection of travelogues from 1561. Abraham Mosh Luntz reprinted the book in 1896. Menahem Mendel of Kamenetz, considered the first hotelier in the land of Israel, wrote about the tomb of Abner in his book in 1839. The book of the occurrences of the times to Jeshurun in the land of Israel. He states, "Here I write of the graves of the righteous to which I paid my respects." Hebron, described above, is the character and order of behavior of those coming to pray at the cave of Ha-Mashpelah. I went there, between the stores, over the grave of Abner ben Ner, and was required to pay a Yishmael. The grave was in his courtyard to allow me to enter. The author and traveler J.J. Benjamin mentioned visiting the tomb in his book 8 Years in Asia and Africa, 1859, Hanover. He states, on leaving the sepulchre of the patriarchs and proceeding on the road leading to the Jewish quarter, to the left of the courtyard is seen a Turkish dwelling house, by the side of which is a small grotto, to which there is a descent of several steps. This is the tomb of Abner, captain of King Saul. It is held in much esteem by the Arabs, and the proprietor of it takes care that it is always kept in the best order. He requires from those who visit it a small gratuity. The British scholar Israel Abrahams wrote in his 1912 book, The Book of Delight and Other Papers, Hebron was the seat of David's rule over Judea. Abner was slain here by Joab, and was buried here. They still show Abner's tomb in the garden of a large house within the city, by the pool at Hebron, where slain the murderers of Ishbosheth. Over the years, the tomb fell into disrepair and neglect. It was closed to the public in 1994. In 1996, a group of 12 Israeli women filed a petition with the Supreme Court requesting the government to reopen the tomb of Abner. More requests were made over the years, and eventually arrangements were made to have the site open to the general public. On 10 days throughout the year, corresponding to the 10 days that the Isaac Hall of the Cave of the Patriarchs is open. In early 2007, new mezuzot were affixed to the entrance of the site. In 1960, David and Goliath film Abner portrayed by Massimo Serrato. In this version, Abner tries to murder David when he returns in triumph after killing Goliath. However, here Abner is slain by King Saul. In the 1961 A Story of David film, Abner was portrayed by Welsh actor David Davies. In 1976, The Story of David television series, younger version of Abner portrayed by Israel actor Yehuda Efroni. The older version of Abner was portrayed by British actor Brian Blessed. In 1985, the King David film, Abner portrayed by English actor John Castle. King David was portrayed by Richard Gere. In 1997, King David musical, written by Tim Rice and Alan Menken, Abner portrayed by American actor Timothy Shute. In 1997, David television drama, Abner was portrayed by Richard Ashcroft. The 2009 King's television series, Abner was portrayed by Wes Studi as General Linus Abner. The series is set in a multi-ethnic Western culture similar to that in the present-day United States, but with characters drawn from the Bible. In 2012, Ray Davey Brazilian television series, Abner was portrayed by Iran Malfitano. And this is the biblical name of Abner. Adonai Nisi, the Lord is our banner. God's blessings be upon us all.